And what are you going to do to lower prices? Which is a very hard question for an incumbent party to answer. And it has implications that are very Trumpian. It is, Trump says he's going to do mass deportation. That'll decrease demand. Trump says he'll explore more energy. That'll decrease energy costs. Democrats can point to the fact that inflation is actually, it was bad 2 years ago. It's not now. What people want to hear is, how do you make the prices go down? So everything she says is something realistic that could survive a fact check that answers a very hard question. There is not a plan to say that we're going to lower the cost of your grocery bill to what it was in 2019.
CNN is suddenly starting to admit the truth about Kamala Harris, and we'll tell you why here today. So folks, I'm Vince with RTM News. If you enjoy the content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. But in the past week or so, it seems like CNN occasionally decided that they wanted to actually tell the truth about Kamala Harris. Now, why exactly is that? One could argue they're just trying to be objective, like, hey, you know, we criticize both sides technically, even though everyone knows we're the anti-Trump liberal network. Or I think much more accurately, the real reason they're doing this is because Kamala Harris, to an extent, is pissing off the media, largely because she refuses to speak to them, right? She won't do interviews. She won't give any press accessibility. And in response, yes, the media is an operating arm of the Democrat Party, obviously, but they're still a for-profit business, right? They still want those ratings. And the fact that Kamala Harris has refused to give that to the media, in this case, she's kind of alienating a very key ally. And maybe that's a reason why we're seeing some of what we're seeing. But nonetheless, we might as well show you. So take a listen to, now after several months, CNN is finally admitting the truth about these alleged Trump bloodbath comments. And they now are finally admitting that Trump's bloodbath comments were taken out of context this entire time. Wow.
It is said by every Democrat working for or around her campaign every day on this network and every other one. The bloodbath thing is stated every single day.
Okay, let me
But my point is, dictator, bloodbath, eliminate Constitution.
Hold on.
What do you think that does?
Let's just clear this up. You're referring to Trump's use of the word bloodbath when he was talking.
And what was he talking about?
I'm going to explain it to people because I think there's confusion about this. Use of the word bloodbath when he was talking about, vehicle manufacturing jobs in the United States. Vice President Harris improperly and unfairly mischaracterized that as him saying there would be a bloodbath if he were elected. However,
wow, folks, are the pigs flying or something? They actually fact-checked Kamala Harris. Now, it is several months in. I mean, obviously, she's been saying this for a long time, but I guess better late than never. They finally are clarifying, yes, those Trump comments about bloodbath were about the economy this entire time, but it goes a lot deeper. Take a listen as CNN even talks about the real state of the election and why polling is not necessarily as good for Kamala Harris as they are claiming.
Worst polling Democrat against Donald Trump in history on national polls. No one is performing worse among blacks, among Hispanics, the worst performing Democrat in modern history among those demographics, worst performing polling wise among Jews. She is losing key factions of the Democratic base. Muslim voters, she's at under 50%, she's at 52% in the latest CAIR poll among black Muslims. She is not doing well.
Again, whoa, they actually brought on a guy to bring that up. It gets even worse for Kamala Harris because Dana Bash, the very same interviewer that gave her total softballs when she did that CNN interview, is now, maybe perhaps in response to the criticism she has been receiving, calling out Kamala Harris for not really saying anything of substance. Now, it is kind of meaningless to do it now because, again, why did you not press Kamala on these things when you were sitting down interviewing her? But I suppose better late than never. Take a listen to what Dana Bash had to say about Kamala.
When you listen to Kamala Harris and what she will do, you can almost start a drinking game every time she says small businesses. Let me give you an example.
Part of my plan under my economic opportunity plan going forward is that right now, startup entrepreneurs, small businesses only get a tax deduction of $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So I'm expanding that to $50,000. Understanding, again, that when people have the opportunity to have the resources to get started, they're going to put the good ideas, they're going to put the hard work into it.
Describe the politics of that.
She says that. She also talks about being a middle-class kid. That's also at the front of her answers. If you look at the interviews they've been doing with local media, and they've opened up a bit more since the debate, the first question's off.
One interview, by the way. We're talking about one interview with local media, just to be clear there.
And what are you going to do to lower prices? Which is a very hard question for an incumbent party to answer. And it has implications that are very Trumpian. It is, Trump says he's going to do mass deportation. That'll decrease demand. Trump says he'll explore more energy. That'll decrease energy costs. Democrats can point to the fact that inflation is actually, it was bad 2 years ago. It's not now. What people want to hear is, how do you make the prices go down? So everything she says is something realistic that could survive a fact check that answers a very hard question. There is not a plan to say that we're going to lower the cost of your grocery bill to what it was in 2019. There was a pandemic. There was a money supply inflation. You can't hit the button that makes that go away. But Trump has an answer that gets him through these questions. And Harris, I think, with a different set of incentives and a different relationship to something she can back up in a policy paper, she doesn't have an answer. So she goes to a larger, well, imagine a future where there are more businesses and this starts to ameliorate.
Okay, but again, I still have to ask the question to Dana Bash. Clearly, you're interested in this, right? You're interested in, hey, why is Kamala Harris not really answering the questions? She doesn't really say anything that means anything. Fair enough. We don't disagree. But why didn't you ask her this in the interview? You know, you'd ask her one thing, and it seems like you cornered her, right? It seems like you got it going somewhere, and then you don't follow up. That's what she did. So you know what? But again, better late than never. At least CNN is kind of admitting to their very far left Trump deranged audience that, hey, you know, some of the things she's saying are not true. Hey, the bloodbath thing, hey, maybe she's not doing as well in the election as people think. Whatever. Let's close here. Last example, and you can imagine the Kamala campaign is not happy about this. Take a listen as CNN covers the fact that the Teamsters Union yesterday refused to endorse Kamala and properly articulated, actually, just how devastating that is for her politically.
We're breaking news. The Teamsters Union will not endorse either candidate in this year's presidential race. Unions, a critical part, of course, of President Biden's winning coalition 4 years ago. But this year, the Teamsters president spoke at the Republican National Convention, putting support in doubt. The union represents 1.6 million workers and retirees. Let's talk about it with CNN's Kayla Tausche. Kayla, this is something that hasn't happened in decades.
It hasn't happened since 1996, Brianna, and you mentioned that unions were a critical component of President Biden's winning coalition back in 2020, and Democrats had hoped that once again, especially after the policies put forth by the Biden-Harris administration, that it would be an easy win for Vice President Harris. Now, she has secured the endorsements for most major union leaders, but this one was always outstanding. And around the time of the Republican National Convention, when Sean O'Brien, the leader of the Teamsters, took the stage to deliver remarks, stakeholders at the time were suggesting that Teamsters officials had been saying behind the scenes that they could remain neutral in this year's race. Remember, union leaders themselves have a political calculus to make within their own organizations. They are elected in many cases, and they have to keep their membership happy. And in many of these cases, they've waited until their own internal polls showed exactly how their rank and file members felt before they came out with their endorsement. And many...
Well, by the way, that rank and file members, 58% for Trump, 31% for Kamala Harris. So that's the reality. So anyways, folks, there you have it. Just a brief compilation today of the rare instances in the past week where CNN was actually honest about Kamala Harris. Figured we'd show you and figured we'd let you speculate as well. What's the intention here? Is there a motive? Are they trying to steer in a different direction? Or is it literally just because the media, as we've seen with more than one network by now, is not really happy with the fact that Kamala Harris won't give them interviews? And so this is kind of their little revenge. It's like, hey, you know what? You don't want to talk to us? You don't want to give us the ratings? We're actually going to be a little critical of you. I don't know. Who knows? That said, be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new. And until next time, I've been Vince with RTM News. Peace.